Hello everyone! Today's little video is about a very big car, but compared to the rest of his models, we've got a James Bond car. Only this James Bond has to get a bit older, get a belly, and of course he has to be overweight. Why? Well, because it's as if this James Bond car looks a lot like an Aston Martin DB9, but it's a long Aston Martin DB9. It is in fact an Aston Martin Rapide. Let's have a look at what it looks like inside today. I've already done a test drive in it, and in the near future, I'll put it all together. And watch a little movie about how James Bond feels when he retires. But let's start with what? Let's start with you opening the door. There's a nice smell of leather. But apart from the leather, there's all sorts of interesting stuff in here. Despite the fact that the car is 2010, still a flight of engineering thought at the British, it is so peculiar, but it is so softly said. You see that the interior is in perfect condition, but it cannot be in bad, because the car has mileage. The car has mileage. Excuse me, 13,000 kilometers. 2010. Yeah, it's hardly been driven. By the way, you can see how fancy the key is. And how do you start an Aston Martin? That's not an easy task either. In fact, to start it you have to push this key inwards. And you have to keep the brake pedal depressed. And then you might be able to start the car. Unless, of course, the battery dies. Because for some reason, such cars are not practically used in Russia. And their mileage, as you can see, is small. Naturally, there is a good audio system. Here, as far as I understand, is Ben Causon. But it's a strange story of how this car came to be. But there was a DB9. But what more could you want? I think it could always be sold. Well, to certain people who like it, but Aston Martin's marketers decided to do something interesting. Well, basically they've added another row of rear seats. And the result is this Sportback. Well, something between a Mercedes and a Mercedes. CLC. Well, and Aston Martin, apparently. There's virtually no space in the back, but you can see the seat in the back as if it were the front seat. But on the whole, in principle, this layout is interesting. First of all, what surprised me, I've already shown you in the previous video, is that this cup holder inside is trimmed with leather, not many cars. I've never seen any cars that have this issue solved, so usually it's always some cheap plastic or something like that, or some rubber. There is certainly no such thing here, and that speaks in favor of the British, of course. Once again I repeat that there are a lot of some unusual solutions here that don't seem strange at first, but then you start to think about it, and it's not strange at all. But look at the back. It looks the same as the DB9 Coupe, but you see, in fact, there are 4 doors. But who knows why such a car was created? My guess is not sure if it's right. Write in the comments, I think it would be interesting to discuss. Note the door handles. They were already in those years in this shape, in this form, in this shape. So they were not invented by the Chinese, that's for sure. But I understand that it was not Land Rover who invented them. Because you see, at first they were like this. Then the drive appeared. They started to move out. By the way, very interesting arrangement of the door. It opens sideways and upwards. Well, actually, it's not a simple car. It's a car with a V12 engine and it should go immediately. But I've already shown you how it drives. But it looks unusual from the outside. You see, the door opens like this. But of course, the look of the car is naturally better anyway. Maybe not better, but more interesting. Well, in general, if you look at the front, it's a regular Aston Martin. You could say it's already classic, because this model, I understand, is no longer in production. But nevertheless, it has left its mark. And let's get back to the interior. Everything you see is not metal, not plastic, and therefore not any other materials. It's all made of leather. I mean, leather everywhere. Leather on leather. And it's actually chased with everything. The interesting thing is, look how thick its seals are. It looks like you're actually getting into a sports coupe. Convenience. Comfort is a very subjective thing. Here, in general, the car is capable of overcoming some long distances. Naturally, you will feel quite good in it. About, of course, these moments with the dashboard and all these buttons. You realize when you get into this car that it's not young. But I will repeat, unlike the Chinese, there may not be a bunch of monitors here, but nevertheless, everything you need is there. There is one monitor, of course. Its quality suffers a little bit in comparison with modern ones, but it seems to me that still it is necessary to buy a car, not because of monitors. That is not to be guided, not by multimedia, not by some screens, but still what motor, what body, what saloon. But here, concerning a salon, everything is good. And adjustment of a column of a steering wheel. You see how it happens. It is very strange. But again, there is a plus in it, because, for example, Bentley has an electric column height adjustment, and it happens all the time that it's ours, and it is impossible to use it in general. It doesn't break down very well. It's all mechanical, so it's impossible to break down. He's just been showing you the seat adjustments. They're in a very strange place too. But everything else, as you can see, is very specific. The stereo, of course, looks like this, something on the level of the game Tetris. But again, it doesn't interfere with the ride. It doesn't interfere with the driving experience. But also, of course, the sound here is just beautiful. So, as you can see, you can manage safely without a bunch of these monitors. Of course, I do not discourage, but there must be a reasonable limit to everything. Here we have the headlights on. Everything is quite simple, clear, as on all cars. But there is one option that... Why have they put this thing in here? I honestly don't understand. It's a button to open the gas tank door. To be honest, the first time I drove this car, I had two problems. First, to start it because the key, the whole movement with it, it is really unclear how to use it. And the second thing, how to open the gas tank hatch. With this, in principle, it is possible to be tormented and spend a whole day for this activity quietly. And it's not a fact that you can do it, but it means that if you suddenly without phone, without internet, well, somewhere just stood in the woods, well, and exactly I tell you, you will think about it for a very long time. And you're not gonna find a solution. Let's have a look under the hood. Under the hood is a good old V12, basically no turbos, no other gadgets. It's a proper car engine. But as you can see, it's a bit like the Mercedes AMG version. It also says who built it. But it's also about the engine, I think, rather than the car. This is the power output of the engine. I can't tell you right now. Can you Google it? Somewhere in the order of, I think, 570 horsepower. In principle, for 2010 it was normal. Although now, imagine how much can be removed in modern times. Car manufacturers can remove it in modern times from such a motor. I think that this number of horsepower can be easily multiplied by 2. But back then, it was what it was. In principle, with such power, with such output and with such volume, it seems to me that this car will drive happily for a long time. At any mileage, it is unlikely to break down, but of course, with good engine oil. Well, as you can see, many options. Dig those air intakes. When you look at it from the outside, it looks very cool, but on the inside you start to look at any bolts, self-tapping, but it's a bit weird looking, really. Especially for a car, for a new one, I think it's in the neighborhood of $200. For this money, probably of course, would like to look some more detailed elaboration of nuts and aggregates, but at least in terms of quality. By the way, an interesting thing, there is a marking plate with the VIN number and everything else. Can you imagine if there's a small accident? It will break, because it's aluminum. So what do we do with our traffic police? How do you prove to them that you're a good person? But again, in Aston Martin, you see there are some such controversial moments, which for our domestic reality perhaps, are not very good. Well, and in general, the car is actually beautiful, at least in the fact that you will have it not like everyone else. It has a good sound, not bad dynamics, but also appearance. Well, you understand. For that alone, it's worth buying. But I'll show you the sound of the engine too. It's worth a listen, because this is one of Britain's works of art. Not Italian, British. That's all I've got for today. Have a good time, everybody. Bye, everybody.